Uh, and I'll click that button, sorry. Thank you, Nikki, for doing it as always. All right, I will call to order the June 1st regular monthly meeting of the Economic Development Commission at 6:37, 6:38. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Deborah, you have a comment about marketing that Wendy gave me a quick heads up, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we will add a copy of, a discussion of marketing. We'll put that under point D of new business. Marketing would, any other items, additions or deletions to the agenda? No, hearing none. Citizen comments. Are there any citizen comments? We only have 2 non-EDC members here, I think, that I can see. No? Beth? Beth.
You got 3 or 4 actually.
All right, anyone raising their hand? If you want to, you either have to turn your camera on and just wave or put your hand waving button up. We do, for those of you that are new, we do take citizen comments throughout the meeting on the topic that we're discussing at the time, if time permits, and it usually does. So you're welcome to raise your hand during our other discussions. And Marion has arrived, so we're all here. All right, the minutes from the May 4th meeting are on the EDC website. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Joe has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Larry is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. All right, our agenda today, we have 3 topics to discuss. The community merchant and visitor surveys. A very brief review of the grant follow-up process, not so much the form, which we discussed at the last meeting, the questions. And a very quick update that I can provide on the select board discussion of the proposed changes to the rental incentive program that we approved at our last meeting. The select board subsequently approved and then slightly modified their approval. It's not I don't think it's a big deal. It's a temporary, potentially. Anyway, I will explain that. And then Deborah has added a discussion about book stock marketing briefly. Is that right, Deborah?
It's not just Bookstock, it's just about our logo in general, but it was something that I saw through Bookstock that it brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not them specifically, it's for
Okay,
all.
thank you.
Yeah.
So that'll be 5D. And then any working group updates, and I know we have an update from the downtown revitalization group. If there are any others that people want to mention. Patrick, you might want to just give us a quick update on any transitions that will happen as a result of your departure and so forth.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay. Discussion of and approval. Oh, sorry. Before we go to point 5A, the new business, I just want to, I do this on every meeting. I want to just remind everybody, I know this is repetitive, but for the small number of people who are not on the EDC, right? These are our 5 priorities: childcare, increasing childcare capacity, increasing workforce housing, marketing Woodstock, rejuvenating the physical downtown area, and supporting events. And we have 4 programs. Our major, well, 5 really, our major grant program, our community grant program. We no longer have grant writing support. That year of support has ended. And I will do a follow-up, Deborah, of that as part of the follow-up process. It deserves a little bit of discussion, but that part has ended. The storefront incentive program is still in place, and the loan fund is still being worked on slowly.
So the grant writing, that's suspended permanently or just until renewal?
It ran out of funding, and we did not bring it forward yet.
Oh,
for refunding, and I don't think, in my opinion, we don't have to discuss this now, but we have not brought it forward for refunding, and
so if it was refunded, would she come on board again?
she might. I mean, Patrick, is there just a very quick update you want to give?
For
Well, I mean, basically the annual funding ended.
Yeah.
There's a gap, so it ended a month or so ago. She's off to other
we
things.
talking grant writing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it basically a lot of tire kicking, but there wasn't really any grants that were available for local businesses. And we had a lot of people asking questions, and just we never could get them to connect, or people would ask the question and then not follow up. So there was a lot of questions, but not a lot of writing.
What people, Patrick? Who are asking the questions?
Local businesses and mostly local businesses. You know, particularly nonprofit stuff. The East End Trail and stuff. And just weren't grants that fit into the buckets that they were looking for. There's a wrap up Excel file that is literally everything that happened that I can forward to John, and he can put it up on the website.
Well, and let me suggest that this is a very relevant discussion, but not for this moment. Deborah, I just suggest that we add this as part of the follow-up program, even though it's ended, because there's
Yeah,
no
that's
other.
what I was thinking. Yeah,
So
well,
let's-
there's something from last year that should be followed up on, so that's
Yeah,
perfect.
This is one of them, so we can learn from that and then decide what to do. So,
Right.
and then the loan fund, which is very slowly being worked on. For today's discussion, the first discussion about the survey, I just want to, seems to be, oh, okay, it's showing up on the screen. This is our simpler, this is the one that doesn't explode anyone's head, work plan for the rest of this year on how we're thinking about the tourism marketing infrastructure issue, not just marketing, but includes marketing. The 6 buckets, the surveys of the local community, visitors and merchants, which is with the phase we're in now, and we're going to talk about tonight. And then subsequent to that, or in parallel bit with that, we will start to think about whether there's infrastructure things, and then think about the impact on our marketing strategy and our and other aspects of our marketing and so forth, and what infrastructure improvements we might want to make, if or other ways to address any issues that sort of come up. So that's kind of where we are. We're still in phase 1. We're going to talk about the first 3 blue boxes tonight, and either tonight or over the next week or 10 days, if you all want more time, because we just sent you, the questions were just posted early this morning. So if that's it's probably not enough time. So we probably will discuss it a bit tonight and then reserve a week or 10 days or so to give more feedback to the 3 members, Greta, Marion, and me, who are the drafters of the survey. So that's where we are. So let's talk about the 3 surveys. And I think what I'd like to do is let's just go one by one. And let me just ask, is in order just we can decide to counteract this, but a couple of people have sort of indicated that, you know, this came out at the last minute. This is really important to get this right. So could we have more time to do this? So unless people strongly object at the end of this discussion, because everyone except 1 or 2 people are in favor, then I'm going to suggest that we set up a week. People can give the authors feedback. We'll have a very quick EDC meeting entirely by Zoom. We're not required actually to be in a physical space. We'll invite the public, but we don't have to be in a physical space. And my guess is in 20 or 25 minutes, we can finalize the surveys. If we send the surveys, if we approve the surveys a week or 10 days from now, or even 2 weeks from now, we're not going to be off the schedule at all. We'll be fine. So turn it off, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Stop it. It's my brother-in-law.
This chart, by the way, it's come a long way. It's a great chart. Looking good, John. Good work, everyone. Head not exploding.
Thank you, Todd. It's good to know that your head is in good shape. All right. So
What's left of it?
Sorry, you're going to see the sausage being made here to get it on. So let's start with, we can start with the, does anyone care which one we start with? Let's start with the visitor survey. And this is it basically in its entirety. These will all be obviously be electronic. You know, there might be typos, things like that. We haven't cleaned these up. But basically 7 questions, which, when did you last visit Woodstock? Trying to get them to be as specific as possible, a holiday, a specific date. If they can't, just tell us what year it was, how far. And then how did you react to each of these aspects of your visit on a scale of great, good, okay, not so good, bad? Lodging, food, we might want to call that restaurants, indoor activities, outdoor activities, shopping, or other aspects of your visit, just to try to get a general sense of the different areas. This does not go into what I'll call the next level of detail. If the food was bad, or if restaurants were bad, is that because you couldn't get a reservation or because you got food poisoning?
John, call that dining.
Dining, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so 2B is dining. Yeah, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. I'm the author of this page. 3, how likely are you to recommend that a friend or colleague visit Woodstock? That's one of the kind of standard customer satisfaction type questions. And how would you rate your overall experience? Another way of getting at the same question. And then the next question is really to try to figure out a trend. Since we will only have taken one survey, if someone has been to Woodstock more than once, we're going to ask them, if yes, we'll ask them 5A, how does your most recent experience compare to your prior visits? It's better, it's the same, it's worse. By the way, there may be some not sures, you know, we'll clean up the questions to make sure that there's a not sure or an open-ended option or something. What was the best thing about your Woodstock visit? Open-ended response. And if there was one thing you could change about Woodstock to make it more appealing, what would it be? And so I think from this set of questions, it's all 3 of us as authors, I think, focused on brevity as a very important criteria. So we can say to people, I think legitimately, any of these surveys, you can answer in less than 3 minutes. So whether that's posted on our website or in an email where we invite people to respond or on a QR code, whatever, we can basically say, look, it takes less than 3 minutes to finish the survey. Please help us.
Hey,
So
John.
let me just pause there and get some high-level overview for kind of 5 minutes. Let's just get some feedback and see if it's,
Patrick, that's.
you know, so Patrick, go ahead.
Did you particularly choose good, great, okay, not so good, and bad as opposed to rating it 1 to 5?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine with rating it 1 to 5. I don't have strong feelings about it. If
Okay, I
people
was
are,
just curious whether there was a reason why you did
No.
it. Okay.
no, I was being particularly I was in a feeling that I was being creative without actually being creative.
Why would you want to change it, Patrick?
People are used to surveys being like 1 to 5, 1 to 10 kind of thing, and so
Yeah.
it might be just a quicker way to do it. They don't have to think. It's kind of like ingrained in us.
Well, what would we should have should we say 1 is very positive and 5 is very positive? 1 is very negative and 5 is very positive.
That's the way I did it on mine was, 5 was positive, 1 was negative.
Watch
And-
Deborah's head. She's got it right.
Yeah, 1 is very negative, 5 is very positive. That's.
Okay, and we'll do that on all of them.
Yeah,
And those words, very positive, very negative. 1 is very negative, that's fine, and 5 is very positive. Okay. All right, any other comments?
Oh, I didn't put very in. I mean, I think we should be consistent. across.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll use, I'll make sure that, yeah, or you can make sure, yeah. So Greta and Aaron will.
The only other thing I would say is limit your open-ended box to like 300 characters or otherwise people, you know, you could be reading a lot.
I think I'd be happy to, yeah, I'd be
Okay,
happy to have people writing an exercise. Yeah, we can,
Cool. That's all right then. Then keep it open-ended.
you know, I mean, we get some, yeah. So, all right, let's keep going. Other thoughts?
I have a thought.
Yep, Todd, go ahead. I can't see
My,
you.
my only thing is about the number 7. I mean, making movies and TV shows and being in literally hundreds of focus groups, you know, you're just going to hear so much nonsense, and then we're going to take time to sort of dissect the nonsense, and everything's going to have to be discussed. And so let's say 100 people do a survey, it's 100 things to read, of which 99 will be like, that's ridiculous, but it'll take us time and energy to do it. So I would just suggest we strike that.
Well, let me push back on that. First of all, I feel as the person who agreed to author this, that I would take the first crack at reading this stuff, and I'm comfortable synthesizing 100, open-ended responses. Here's why I think it has the possibility of being valuable, but without arguing that it will be. It very well could be exactly what you just said, but this question implicitly has both priority and it has importance as well as what the issue is combined in it, because they're not going to write a list of 19 things. They're going to write the things that are most important. And I think prioritizing, which we don't do anywhere else, is going to be important. And this gives them a chance to talk about the one most important thing. We don't limit it to one. Well, no, sorry, we say there's one thing. If they follow the instructions, it'll tell us what the one most important thing is.
So then how about we pick 15 things and make a drop-down menu? Because someone's going to say more Christmas lights. Someone's going to say no Christmas lights. Someone's going to say trash cans. Someone's going to say more benches. Someone's gonna say more painted signs on the streets. Like, I just don't think the data gets gonna be that honed in. So maybe we can think of 10 or 15 things that make sense to us as people who live in the community that we can imagine, and take that exercise and maybe go from there, perhaps.
All right, let's come back. Deborah first, and then Greta, and then Patrick. Deborah, Greta, Patrick.
Wait, so what do you think of that, though?
Oh,
Well,
well, I think let them say what they think, and then yeah. I
Sure.
presume you're going to respond to Todd or stay on the topic. So
Yeah, I'm
Greta,
gonna stay on the topic, yes.
Deborah, Greta, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, that's a specific exercise and it is leading the witness. If it's like, these are the things that we're asking you, which one of these would you say we should do? I mean, what's typically at the end of a survey, like we know, is like any additional thoughts, any additional comments. And that way, if somebody really wants to complain about something or say something, they could say it there and it's open-ended, as opposed to leaving it towards the negative or towards what do we need to change. It's just anything else you want to say. Any additional feedback?
Greta.
Well, what I was going to say is that I really think that all three of the surveys are going to different community or different groups, but the common thread in all of these is basically this question. And so it's like, we're going to take the responses from all three groups and kind of find that Venn diagram and figure out what are the things that kind of fall, you know, for all three groups that everyone can kind of get behind. That's, I mean, it's going to be worded differently, you know, it's for the merchants survey, we're calling it infrastructure and things like that. But I think that number 7, that's where the visitors are going to be able to say things like, you need more parking, or you need more daytime dining options, you know, I think it's an important question to leave open-ended.
Patrick.
Yeah, I don't think we should lead them in this particular one as well. And I think, Greta, you brought up an interesting point. I think you'd have the question asked the same way on all 3 surveys.
Okay.
Because that way there's no question, you know, what's the one thing you want? You know, I think that'll help your Venn diagram focus better.
Patrick, and then Marion.
Patrick.
I'm sorry, Joe, and then Marion.
What I think is that it's the one question where you're allowing the participant to actually express how they feel about something, rather than a quick yes or no that doesn't really illuminate how they really feel about what's going on. Yes, no, maybe, blah, blah. But this question gives them an opportunity to really express how they feel about something. That's how I think.
Yeah, I think it's kind of presumptuous of us to say that we know. I mean, I think the value of the question is that there might be things that surprise us.
That's right.
And like, if we're going into this genuinely open-minded, we should ask an open-ended question and be willing to be surprised.
All right.
Yeah, I'm in the minority here. For instance, if we get a lot of answers that says food bad, let's just say.
Right.
And that's all we get. I mean, somehow I agree that it would be great if they would then get more granular about it in number 7, but somehow I would like to see that encouraged. For instance, is food bad because there's lack of variety? Is food bad because no one could find a place to eat, nothing was open, or everything was overcrowded? I mean, there are all sorts of things that I don't think I don't think the answer food bad is actionable by us. I don't think it gives us anything.
I don't think you're going to get food bad. I think you're going to get lots of copy. I think that's why I was saying you might want to limit it, because people will write a lot. You'll be surprised.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
No, not at all.
All right, well, there are 2 issues on the table. I want to, if I can just make yours the next question. I just want to close the loop on Todd's suggestion, which the other people commented on. And Todd, I agree with the others. I think you're in the minority here, but let me also say that one of a central part of your complaint, not the entire thing, was, you know, what if everyone answers something different? I think that gives us an extremely powerful insight, and it clearly gives us an opportunity it drives how we act after we get that answer, in exactly the same way that when we did the trash cans and so forth, drove our answer. We basically, if nobody can agree on what's important, then we will have to decide what's important, and we will have the authority and to do that because nobody else can agree. So I hope we get some common agreement from the people who respond to the survey on question 7. I hope 40 or 50% of them say one thing. But in the extreme, if we get 100 different answers from 100 different respondents, I know exactly what the EDC should do after that, which is to put our heads together and decide what we think is important, and to ignore what the visitors are saying because they're not giving us any guidance. And so I guess my view is, so I think, Todd, I think your point is understood and so forth, but I think most of the rest of us, except Larry, you're commenting on a slightly different point. So let's take Larry's question. But again, I want to leave time. I don't want to make these decisions tonight because I think we need, and again, if you all don't mind taking a week, thinking about it, doing some email exchanges with the authors on these kinds of topics. And Todd, we can continue the discussion in that forum if you want to. Is that all right? So let's.
I'm fine. Everyone's you can go either way. It's not like a hard stick in the thing. It makes sense. Okay. I get it.
All right. Let's just talk about
Okay, go ahead.
No, I was going to say Larry's raising I think a second question, which he and I talked about a little bit earlier before the meeting. And you're using one example, but which is that the answers to these questions are not going to tell us what to do. Like if it doesn't matter if we hear dining is bad, or we hear any of those things are bad, or even if the answer to question 7, if 50% of the people say the dining, I really didn't like the dining. If they say parking sucks, I think we'll know a little bit what to do. Yeah. But if they say dining or outside activities, or there wasn't enough to do, we won't yet know what to do. And so, right. And so the question is, I think the trade-off is, should we expand the survey and try to understand not just this number of questions, but, should we could ask on question 2, for the things that you rated as bad, could you explain further what was bad about them? Which is kind of what you're trying to get at.
We could actually, in number 2, and in the other surveys, we could encourage them with some sort of language that we would ask that you expand on your answer in number 7. That you driving them to encouraging them not to just say dining is bad, but to in number 7 be more specific.
Well, the problem is that the reason not to do that is a number of people mentioned, and I agree, that number 7 isn't just limited to the 5 things mentioned in question 2.
No, but it doesn't have to say that.
Well, but if we tell people in number 2 to use question 7 to answer why they answered number 2, they're limited to what they answered in number 2.
But just say in number 7, in addition to the questions asked in 2, do you have anything else you want to say?
Well, another way to look at that would be in question 2, if they answer not so good and bad, have it because they answer that, and I'm sure Todd's programming this, have them, if they ask that a box then comes up that says, please explain why.
That's a great idea. If it's sub 3, can we get more info on it? And then 7's open-ended.
Yeah,
that gives us extra data points to sort of get through the noise on if 7's a bit of a disaster, but maybe it won't be.
And it doesn't.
That's a good idea.
Well, but I also think my concern is that it expands because every single one of 2A through E require. But if we only get the bads, then it only makes the survey much longer for people who think everything is bad, which is fine.
Right.
So okay.
Fine.
Doesn't have to say that. I can say, just expand on your answer.
No. The point, but what we really want them to expand on is an answer of bad.
Right.
And people who complain are more motivated to answer.
Absolutely. And Larry, from a technical point of view, the survey will, there's branching. Which means that if it'll only ask the question, it will, if you just say bad, it will just say, why was it bad?
Right. Question 1 should be, how often do you use Yelp?
All right, other comments, last comment, because we've kind of covered a couple topics, new topic on this survey, and then we'll go on to the next.
New question about that. Just for discussion, outdoor activities, indoor activities. Do we mean like cultural activities by indoor? Do we mean dining?
What do you think?
I'm not sure what it means. And so I was confused by it. I thought it might be confusing.
I wrote outdoor activities and then I thought,
But I thought cultural activities might be,
yeah, a better than indoor.
yeah.
I'm fine with that. I think that's great. So 2D is cultural.
or-
Okay,
I don't like to
You
be,
see.
but I think number 7, again, I'll say it again, is important because that's the one spot where people can just narrate and, you know, express exactly how they feel about their experience.
Yeah.
Rather than a yes or no answer.
yes. All right, so we're gonna leave question 7.
Yeah,
All right, and question 2, we're gonna say that
thinking like a lawyer.
if bad, why?
I
All
would
right,
do not so good and bad. I would do both of those, have them.
Right, that's what I would do both.
so if you basically do a 1 or a 2,
Right.
Exactly.
if 1 or 2, ask why.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Okay. All right, given that we're gonna have, no one has objected yet to having the extra time, we're gonna go on to the next one. So let's go to, Marion, do you want to do yours? So that's
Yeah.
the community survey.
What's supposed to do?
Sorry, I'm just texting my kid. Okay. Yes.
All right, so I can't fit this all on one page. All
Start at the top, John, and we'll slide down.
right, yeah, so Marion, do you want to
Are
just,
all of your passwords in that P words tab? Can you click on that for us, John?
oh, yeah.
No, keyword, that's definitely not password. I'm sure it's something else.
Yeah, I'm sharing a little bit too much of my,
Yeah.
I love it.
fortunately, this page isn't full screen, so you're missing the things out to the right of Yahoo.
Right? I literally have tears in my eyes right now.
All right, Marion, go ahead. Do you want to just take us through this one?
Yeah, do you want me to just read them out loud or?
Yeah, I think that's,
So I have, do you live in Woodstock, Vermont? I put Vermont there just in case. Yes, I'm a full-time resident. Yes, I'm a part-time resident. Yes, I'm a seasonal resident. No, I'm just visiting. I realize it's for residents, but I think it might get in the wrong hands, so let's just do that. The questions are, do you feel tourism impacts the overall sense of community in our town? Yes, no, or I'm not sure. And there's a
I
conditional.
want us to have questions because I have a question on the first one.
all right, why don't you go through all of
Yeah,
them?
why don't I
Marion?
go
Let's
through
go through all of them, and then Patrick, you're first in line.
So I
Okay.
have yes, no, I'm not sure, and then if yes, in other words, if it impacts your sense of community, rate that impact on a scale of 1 to 5, positive, 5 being positive, 1 being negative. Do you feel tourism impacts your personal enjoyment of town? Same, yes, no, I'm not sure, and then if yes, 1 to 5. Do you volunteer in the community? Yes or no? And the conditional again, has tourism impacted your interest in volunteering? And then have you experienced any difficulties or inconveniences accessing local facilities or services due to tourism? Yes, frequently, yes, occasionally. We can maybe make it a 1 to 5, I don't know. No, there has been no issue, I'm not sure. Do you feel the town government and law enforcement are able to manage the impacts of tourism here? Yes, no, I'm not sure. This is one that, yeah. Overall, do you believe the current level of tourism in our town strikes a good balance between economic benefits and preserving the community identity? Yes, no, I'm not sure. And then my open-ended question is there a specific impact of tourism, positive or negative, you feel we should know about?
All right,
does
Patrick,
On the first question, I think there should be a choice in there for someone who lives in Barnard or Beachy or
Oh, yeah,
Bridgewater. You know, I don't live in, I live in the Woodstock area or some,
yeah, good
listen
idea.
to towns. I live in one of these towns.
Mhm.
And then the other thing I would do is when you have these things where it's like, if yes, that's a programming thing, do the same
Yeah,
way that you do on.
Exactly, right. It'll be conditional. If they answer yes, that'll come up.
Yep. And then the only other thing is, I think we should have the question that was on the other one, if there's one thing you could change. I think if that question's across all 3 surveys, it'll be very interesting to put those all together and do the 3 circles and see what ends up in the middle.
you're keeping track of these
I am
comments.
taking
Okay,
notes,
great.
yeah, thank you.
Would know.
Okay, other comments, Deborah?
Yeah, can you scroll up to the front?
Yeah, sorry, I'm in the wrong
Yeah.
place.
I love the idea of the last question being the same, but just shift it slightly. If there's one thing you can change about tourism in our town, it would be, you know,
Yes,
so.
right, we're not talking about yeah, right.
Yeah, so you make it relevant to each different one, but it's the same one. This is great. Marion, do you feel tourism impacts the overall sense of community in our town? That's at the top. Second question. You know, do you feel tourism impacts, and are you saying negatively
Well,
on
that's
our
the
over,
question.
or
So
like-
the way the question is set up, if they say yes, it impacts it, an automatic next question comes up, is it positive or negative? If you say no, there's no.
Can I just suggest that,
Got it.
because I think that when I first read that question, I think another way to get at exactly the same thing is simply, how would you rate the impact of tourism?
So I was trying to separate, does it have an impact?
Right.
versus Is it good or bad?
Well, but if you do 1 to 5, the 5 could be it has no impact.
But then if it has.
I'm sorry, that's sorry, 3 could be no impact. In other
but
words,
it could have a 5. it
1
could-
is negative impact, 2 is a strong negative impact, 2 is a somewhat negative impact, 3 is no impact,
Yeah.
4 is a somewhat positive, and then you
Okay,
answer
yeah.
both questions.
I think the thing that Marion's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, and what I'm thinking here is it could be that it impacts our sense of community in a positive way at level 5, or it impacts our community in a negative way at level 5. So
Right.
they're
You're
2
in-
different.
So that would be,
You're asking 2 questions, Deborah.
Yeah.
I think Marion wasn't asking.
No, I
actually.
think it was.
Well,
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to figure out, how to make sure it's clear.
so
That's-
there's a question of what direction is the
Yeah,
impact,
and
and
what's
how
the
intense is that is.
Right.
I think if you do it the way I suggested,
Yeah, I think that was.
we get in one question both of those. We don't get as much granularity. We only get 4 and 5 as opposed to, right, 4 and 5 is 2 levels of positivity. 1 and 2 is 2 levels of negativity.
No, that seems simpler. I buy that.
Right. I mean, I think we're getting what Deborah is suggesting.
Yeah.
Just
that's
technically.
typically how it would be handled too, is exactly how you said, John. A typical surveys would have that middle one as,
Yeah.
doesn't bother me either way.
Do you think that's I mean, I guess the same people aren't getting surveys, so we're not gonna confuse them by having our 1 to 5 be a different.
Right, correct. Hold on 1 second. Ken Sturm has just said that the audio is very garbled. Ken, we're gonna try. Marion, can you just take this?
And Mary needs a microphone.
Yeah, we're gonna give her a microphone. Ken, if you can hear us,
So,
there's nothing we can do about it. We have a good audio system. If it's garbled, it's probably because our bandwidth it's either at your end or our bandwidth is troubling. Is anyone else having a problem with the audio?
Marion, talk a little bit.
Hi, do you
Yeah,
really need to hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Ken, thank you for commenting. Hopefully that has fixed the problem. All right, let's keep going. Other comments? Greta?
So what we had discussed with the last one, I think, Deborah just made a comment about, maybe the last, question on this one, or someone did, but I'm wondering if we should lead them a little bit more, if the question should be more specific about, what investment should the town of Woodstock think about? What should we invest in to make managing the impacts of tourism, more manageable? I feel like, as we were saying, when I was speaking to Todd's comment, it kind of having a common thread of the question, it's kind of what we're getting at is where should the money be spent? So I feel like in this particular one, we could use a question that's kind of more directed at what should we be investing in to make this better for visitors and the locals, or specifically locals in regards to visitors. Does that make sense?
That's not the whole question.
Yeah,
No.
well, I'm not sure it completely
Yeah, my concern with that is,
makes it. Go ahead.
yeah, well, I mean, I guess my concerns are, one, it's sort of assuming that there's something that needs to be fixed, which we don't want to assume. And then the other
Right.
piece is it may, I mean, I'm assuming maybe I'm assuming most people are like me, they hadn't thought a ton about it. And so I wanted to try to make it things that people think about in their day to day, like, wow, there's too many people, I can't get to the restaurant. But
Mhm.
I don't think it's a bad question.
I'm not sure how, Greta, I'm not sure how your comment is different than earlier, I forget who it was. It might have
Do you
been.
mind scrolling all the way to the bottom?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So I think somebody suggested that we have those two parallel questions at the bottom that were
Yeah.
parallel to the other one. And if that's
Yeah.
what you're suggesting, I think that makes sense, and just rewording them to say,
If there's one thing you could change, just making sure it's not
Yeah.
in the visitor survey, it is by definition about tourism, but in the community survey, so someone suggested, maybe it's Deborah, if there was one thing you could change about Woodstock as it relates to tourism or something like that.
Exactly,
Well,
make it specific.
Is that is that the point you're making, Greta, or is it something else?
Yeah, I guess in my mind, I was thinking that all three of these surveys would kind of, in some way lead the person filling it out to give a suggestion of what should be invested in, as far, and it doesn't necessarily need to be that. But that was my response to Todd's initial comment, was just, I was thinking that, there would kind of be, all three groups would be recommending things that
We could pay for.
yeah.
we could be paying for. Exactly.
Well,
And so
but
it's kind of like,
I
okay,
actually have-
what can all three groups agree on?
So one point I have, I mean, the question I asked, which is a little different, is there a specific impact of tourism, positive or negative, you feel we should know about? Because
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, the survey right now is like, does it impact this? Does it impact that? Yes or no? And I thought we genuinely would want to know. Maybe there's something we haven't thought of that is an impact.
Absolutely. And I think,
Yeah.
Greta, I think that we can pay for anything. It's not just infrastructure. I mean, Larry, you
Right.
made this point in our private discussions.
Right.
We might, they might say, well, we want more diversity in the people that are in the town. Now, I mean, we could pay for that. We might decide that the three biggest things that people are complaining about are things that are beyond our capability. So then we'll pay for the fourth thing. But I think, I agree with Marion, at least, that I think this question, like the question that's on the screen, question 7, is asking about what we should pay for. It's just a question of whether we would pay for it or not. We have to decide that.
Right.
So I don't think, there's no limit to what.
Well, I'd actually like to know, like, I thought the idea of having parallel questions of like, what would you change makes sense, but now I'm thinking more like this is my last open-ended question is actually a different question.
Right.
And I don't know if we want to ask all three, or I'd love to hear what people think about that.
I'd like to suggest, I agree with the suggestion that we should ask a version of questions, a very close version of question 7 in each of the 3 surveys.
But
I
what do
agree
we
with
think
that.
about this question that's there now,
I think that's.
which is a
good idea.
different question?
I think it's a different question.
So do we ask both?
You could say, is there something else about tourism that positive or negative you feel we should know about?
What?
Yeah, I think that, there's no reason to just not have another question. Like leave that, get that information, and then have the final question.
Is there
Have the final question be a version of what's on the other form, and still keep the question that Marion wrote, because it's like, it's different.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking like, okay, part of this is there are people in our community who are frustrated.
Yeah.
And they want an opportunity to tell us what those.
I think that's
But
the point
no,
that's valid.
but
The survey does that.
But doesn't point number, doesn't 7 do that?
Yes, it does.
If you
No, it's-
had your version of 7, how?
I think 7 is about how to fix it, and this is,
No, is there
what's
one-
happening to you.
Is there one thing you could change? Isn't that how?
To me,
I think
maybe I'm getting in the weeds, but the way I'm thinking about it is like, if you ask me this question, and I would say like, somebody peed on my lawn.
Right.
And if you ask me that question, I would say there should be police in town.
I
Oh.
fully agree with Marion's point here, and I think there is a distinction personally.
So which one would answer, there should be police? Because I don't want,
What's the one thing you would change? I think there should be police. I'm just saying, that's not really.
oh, you don't think that people would say, I think you should find a way to have people stop being on the lawn?
No.
No, I think they would just do existing sort of. I think they're
Oh,
they're
I should stop
nuanced differently.
advertising,
I
or
think
you
so.
should.
Oh, I would answer. I would not know how to, it's just-
Yeah,
I think there's
The
people
last
that
thing
read
I
it
would say
differently.
is.
Yeah.
you need
I would
more
never,
cops.
I wouldn't have answered I would have answered the opposite way, but I wouldn't have known. Yeah, I would have answered the 2 questions the same.
Anybody that goes anywhere on vacation, the last thing they want to think about is poor cops.
Okay. So can I just say that it's clear that
that was an example.
I think we're all pointing towards the same general direction for the end of the survey.
Right.
Open-ended
Yeah.
questions, trying to elicit information,
Yes.
but we haven't quite got the wording or the number of questions. So
Right.
And
that's your
John,
list.
I think that I think that if there was a way that what Greta was saying and we touched on, I think at the last question, whatever it may be, was a uniform thing to make a solid data point from the three groups, like just definitively when we decide in the final verbiage, that would be really fantastic. So there's really no ambiguity about it. That would be
Right.
my one wish in this thing. But I mean,
So-
we're all splitting hairs here, really.
Yeah.
It's a
All
lot
right,
of
but we're
great
gonna
questions.
ask question 7, Marion. You'll consider over the
Yeah.
next week as you get feedback whether or not to have.
Whether this one is.
And if you are going to have this question, I would just make sure that it's clear that it's
Yeah.
what the two aspects you're trying to
Yeah,
get.
got
All
it.
right, other comments about the
Gotta hand-
community survey?
Jeff's got a question.
Yes, I do have a question.
Oh, I don't see Jeff. Oh, sorry. There you go.
what-
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm here. Sorry, you're not seeing me, but I'm here. Question number 1 about residents, Woodstock. I just have to disagree with Patrick on that one. This is the Woodstock Economic Development Committee. And that's where it's funded from, and that's who we want to know about. It's also, second point to that, going to be much harder to do a full survey of surrounding towns as well as Woodstock. So I would just keep it the way it is. It should be for Woodstock residents.
But Jeff,
I agree with you, but it may get handed to some people who are not residents or who used to live here. So we should just have it there just in case.
it's actually there so that we don't accidentally get people voting, so to speak, who aren't from Woodstock.
Yeah, I think it should be just for people who are from Woodstock
Can
now.
can we just add to what's up there, which is, yes, I'm full-time, yes, I'm part-time, yes, I'm seasonal. Yes, I'm in the Woodstock area, you know,
But no,
so,
it's no, but I live in the Woodstock area.
no, but I live in the Woodstock area. Yeah, exactly.
And Jeff, we can then decide what, if anything, to do with that. I tend to agree with you that we would be interesting to know what those people think. There might be some questions on which we would find relevant, but
They still spend money in Woodstock.
I was trying to think of how.
A lot of those
people
people are
themselves,
coming into Woodstock.
yeah,
Spend
we can consider those to be visitors. We can consider them to be visitors as opposed to residents.
Yeah.
So Jeff, but I don't think.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering how is this survey getting issued? I mean, I envisioned it going out to all mailboxes for Woodstock, for instance. I mean, otherwise it's going to be extremely random. How are you going to really survey the residents of Woodstock?
Well, we just go to the listserv. I think I mean, I don't read my mail ever. So if you sent something to me in the mail, that would be fine, but it's gonna go into the Heartland Solid Waste Transfer Station.
Okay, I could make the same point that not all people look at the listserv, because which is amazing, but it's true.
I agree completely.
We
How
could
much
also
does- How much does
distribute,
the listserv cost versus how much does the mail? But anyway, we're gonna distribute it as best we can. We don't have a budget. We could ask for a budget. I mean, we have
Yeah,
administrative.
the standard Vermont standard thing, the listserv, like the things we do with all the surveys at a minimum. And if anyone has any better ideas, we can add to that for sure. Like, you know, but yeah, we're not going to do a mailer. I don't think that's happening.
we could get a
Okay.
QR code made and have that
Yes,
printed on some materials to pass out in the village or
Yes.
something.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, I do think that by adding the additional possible answer on question 1, we will have the ability to limit the responses to this survey to only people who live in Woodstock, which I think was your point. And
Yeah,
and-
that was my point. Thank you,
right,
John.
and we will have that ability. So Lauren, Joe is just suggesting that you have a point of view about any of this?
What are your ideas about this? What do you think? You're sitting there getting this all in, what's going through your head? Huh?
Pulling it all in right now.
Okay,
All right,
well,
feel
if
free
you
to-
got something, just jump up.
Feel free to jump in. All right, Marion, do you want, I mean, again, we will have a phase of more feedback. But is there, at this high level that we're talking about, other kind of new points about this survey? Beth, go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering, for the top, if it would be worth having, no, but I work in Woodstock, because that might have I mean, they might have a valid,
Great idea.
valid idea or
Idea.
input into this.
Good idea, we'll add.
Yeah,
Marion
yeah,
agrees.
yeah,
Thanks, Beth.
thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, all right, let's go to the third one, which is the merchant survey. No, sorry. Oh, there we go. Now we got the folders up. Oh, wait. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Am I share? Oh. All right, Greta, you want to take us through and then we'll do questions?
Sure. So at the top, location and type of business to be filled in. And then considering the experience of visitors to Woodstock over the past few years, would you assume these individuals leave feeling A, disappointed by certain parts of their experience and not wanting to return, B, disappointed by certain parts of their experience but open to coming again, or C, very happy overall? Next one, sorry, they're not numbered. In order to provide a positive experience for our visitors, what would you identify as the most important piece of infrastructure for the town of Woodstock to invest in? So basically this, sorry, I have a quick aside. This is the one that is, you know, I guess if we're gonna align all three in some way, this is the one we would probably choose. When I met with some of the merchants and discussed this with them, they had suggested that we get more specific and not keep it totally open-ended, but we can discuss that after. Moving on, how much year-over-year growth in revenue from tourism alone is necessary to sustain your business? Then between 0 and 25% or more. Do you believe that the EDC's marketing of Woodstock has increased your business? Yes, not sure, no. If you answered yes, by how much? Less than 10%, 10%, 25, more than 25? What percentage of the budget for marketing the town of Woodstock should be covered by the local merchants? And then the percentages. How do you anticipate your business in 2023 will compare to 2022? Less revenue, same revenue, higher? And then general comments regarding marketing strategies for the town of Woodstock.
That's gonna be a fun question.
Yeah.
Comments?
I want to be the one reading that one.
Yeah.
Larry?
Yeah, one and two don't quite track to me in the sense that there might well be other non-infrastructure issues that the merchants want to mention. And it seems to me that that it's not tracking the answer. If the answer is that if they leave disappointed, is not necessarily going to be cured by an infrastructure investment. And it seems like there should be something that encourages the business owners to suggest what that would be.
So that's a great point. I think that when we, like I said, the merchants had said to get specific with a multiple choice, but I do think that in the interest of keeping it similar to the other two surveys, we should just leave it open-ended. And maybe if you think take out the word infrastructure, just keep it the same as far as what should be invested in, or I don't know what.
Basically, you're suggesting making the second question some version of question 7 for merchants.
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't need to fall where it is in the survey. It could be moved down, and it could be open-ended. Originally, it was open-ended. It was kind of, it read, saying, what do you think should be invested in?
So I think that
with,
go ahead,
yeah, in reference to the visitors, what would make it nicer.
Your concern for question 2, but
Yeah.
not yet for question 1. Well, actually, the combination with 1 and 2 sort of, does that get to your concern? Or?
Well, I mean, as I said to you, I'd like to have more details to specifically give them encouragement to say what.
Well, fine.
If they're disappointed.
Well, we could do the same thing as if they basically answer A or B. We could just say, what's the main reason why?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Sure. Do we want to do a similar, like a 1 to 5, instead of disappointed by certain parts in it? Do a.
How would you? Yeah. So
we could either do a 3 as not, and positive and negative.
Well, the same. So Greta, would you be okay? Yeah. Would you okay with the 1 to 5 scale? very
Absolutely.
negative to very positive. All right.
Mhm.
So for the first
I
question,
think that we got to those three options because you had a point, John, about, you know, a lot of people will have negative things to say, but they still want to go back.
right, so you're asking, you're
We're talking
combining-
about return business kind of.
Yeah, we're talking about there are two questions that are merged together here, and one of them is, how do you think people feel? And the other is, will they return?
Right. So we
Uh,
could separate those and just do, how was your overall experience, 1 to 5, and then just have it be a yes, no, would you come back?
Do you think that well, we can't, because we're asking the merchants about all the people, so we have to think, you know, or what percent of people?
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
So maybe it's what percent of people do you think will return?
Right.
But yeah,
Or what, you know, what's the likelihood that they'll return to 1 to 5 scale? Very
What-
likely.
Greta, was there a strong, I just have a question, was there a strong, so Greta worked with the merchants, with a few of the merchants, a committee that Jeff and Beth had sort of.
I
worked
think
on
all
putting-
3 that I spoke with are here tonight, actually. Beth,
Oh, okay.
Jeff, and Lauren.
Okay, so, okay, well, so
Well,
if they have
John-
if you have any comments, that's fine, and then, go ahead, Jeff, and then Deborah.
Yeah, in question 1, I mean, I would have to answer A and B. Because some people wouldn't want to come back again and others would. It's a tremendous number for both A and B. And very happy overall. I mean, some are very happy. I have to answer A, B, and C, unless, you know, and then if you wanted explanations, sure, but there's no way to not answer all 3 of those if you want to be realistic about what we experience as merchants.
Well, let me ask you, can I ask perhaps a tough question of the 3 people that were not you, Greta, but the others that worked on this, or really the merchants, in fact? Since we're asking people whether or not they had a good experience, shouldn't we rely on what they say rather than what you think they would say?
Well, if you're relying on what they say, you have to answer all 3.
No, but we're not asking, we're on for them, we're asking each person. You know, did you have a good experience? In other words, if we're lucky and we get 250 visitors to answer the question, did you have a good, you know, the question we were going to ask them, did you have a good, here, let's put it up. You know, how likely would you recommend it? How would you rate your overall experience, 1 to 5? Then we know that 60% of them rated it a 1, and 30% rated it a 2, and 10% rated it a 5. I guess my question is, do we need to ask them? I don't want to, if you guys think we should ask the merchants that, I'm okay with it, it's fine. But should we really be asking the merchants the first question, which is basically, what do you think the people feel? I mean, merchants do have a lot more insight into what people feel than I do.
All the time.
Right? So let's ask them.
They just speak with us all the time. We sit down, have a cup of coffee with them, and you get all the information you need right from them.
Well, then let's ask the question in a form that we can use to compare it to the visitor survey.
Right.
That's interesting.
Right? So the merchants think that, is that okay, Jeff or Joe? The visitor survey is basically, how likely are you how would you rate your overall experience? 1 to 5. So what if
How do you think
what if we just ask, how do you think?
visitors would rate their experience 1 to 5?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what would?
The 3 questions you get more from my experience. What is there to do in this town? Where should I go for dinner? What's the story with the park? And those essentially, those are pretty much, is there more shopping? How do I get to a shopping spot? That's down the road, turn right. I mean, it just, and inevitably, the first response is, have you been to the museum yet? Do you like to hike? Can you meet up Mount Tom? I mean, it's really quite that simple. It's
I will say this,
not
that-
more complicated than that.
I think that Joe's gonna get different questions than I get as a lodging property.
They don't ask you where to eat, Patrick?
They ask me where to eat, then they tell me, where's the hiking?
Yeah.
What are the
Same thing.
best things to see? Where are the covered bridges? I mean,
Yeah.
I get all kinds of questions. I probably easily a dozen the same questions all the time.
Deborah, you've had your hand up for a long time, I apologize.
Yeah, let me see if I can remember. Seriously. Oh, yeah, I had two thoughts of things that I was wondering if we wanted to find out more information about. Which is, oh shit, I just lost
Oh, you
it.
don't know, Deborah, let's, it
No.
sounds like you might want to change the subject, so I just
No,
want,
no.
is it on question
Yeah,
one?
it's not about the first, it's not about the
Okay,
first question.
let's just resolve that and we'll come right back to you.
Yeah,
I think people were nodding their heads when we said, we want the first question to be comparable to the visitor survey.
oh, I remember.
Let's not wordsmith that right now, because it's, you can't ask exactly the same question, because as Jeff said, you can't say, how do visitors feel 1 through 5? They feel 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So Greta, there's a way, I think, to frame this. We can work it out, but the intent is for question 1, for us to be able to say, this is how the merchants think visitors are feeling. And here's what the visitors survey says visitors are feeling. And it'll either be very similar or different, and it'll be interesting to see that. But our purpose is to be able to compare it to that. So we'll word that first question that way. All right,
Okay.
Deborah, is it Jeff, is everyone okay with that?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's just that you have to be able to give the merchants the option of answering all of them. in that
Exactly.
First
Oh, yes,
question.
of course.
Right, and there's a way that we can do that. We can talk about it. I have an idea, but there's probably several ways to do it, but it's not quite, we can't just take the same question. Greta, you're okay with that broad direction? And
I
then
think
we'll-
that sounds great.
Okay, all right, Deborah, go ahead. New topic now.
Yeah, there's 2 pieces of information that I'm wondering if we want, because they're pieces that we've talked about before that didn't end up here, which is, one is that when you ask, do you believe that the EDC's marketing of Woodstock has increased your business? Yes, not sure, no. Not sure is like probably someone who doesn't know, but what the EDC has done. But even the yeses and the nos, I'm just curious out of them, like who actually knows what the EDC market, they're answering a question where I'm not sure they know. And so I like this question, but I also think it deserves a follow-up, which is, what do you think the EDC has done in marketing? So, what is your awareness or your understanding of what the EDC has done? Because I think that's, otherwise it's just, it's almost like rumor, and
The businesses don't know what the EDC
Yeah.
has done unless they paid attention to the EDC meetings and understand what we've been building and what we've done. They have no clue.
so I just think that helps you with your yeses and no, giving some weight to it. If somebody's like, no, but do you know what they've done? No, like, I think it's an important part of the question.
So something to test for each respondent, how much they know about the EDC, so that we can say for the half of the respondents who said however we assess it, who know a lot, here's what they said. And then for the respondents who said they know nothing, here's what they said. However we ask that question. So Greta,
Yeah.
we'll have to work again, I'm
I
just
like
sort of
that,
leaving
yeah.
broad topics there. All right,
Wait,
other
J-
comments, because I want to wrap
Wait.
this.
John.
And the
John?
second,
Oh, sorry, Deborah first and then Jeff.
and then the second question that we've talked about, or subject that we've talked about before, is the website, the Woodstock website, through the chamber. I'm just curious, out of all of these people, like how many people have taken advantage of that and are on that website, and because we've talked about that a number of times, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, or what Beth's going to do with that, but I know it's been brought up. So I think it's an important question to understand how the businesses are participating in that.
Maybe it's as simple as, is your business on the Woodstock VT website? If it is, do you regularly change it? Never change it? Don't know
Yeah.
how to change it.
Just get some information, because that's a big part of how people should be, I think, marketing. Anyway, yeah.
Beth's hand is up too, just.
Okay, yeah, I know. Jeff, Beth, I'm going to call on Jeff. I'll come back to you. So Jeff and then Beth.
Yeah, first of all, I like what Deborah just said, to get that information. But then I just want to comment about the question about how much the EDC's marketing has increased your business. I think that should be dropped. I think it's impossible to answer how much. Less than 10%, 10%, 25%, more than 25%. There's so many other factors that affect our business from year to year that the more important question is more basic. Do you believe EDC's marketing of Woodstock is important to the vitality of your business? And that's a question we asked the merchants just a month ago, which I sent you in an email today, John. I don't know if you saw it.
I have not.
And the vast majority, there was a merchants meeting, for those of you who are not aware. The vast majority of all the merchants in the village of Woodstock attended, and the great majority of them signed with the name of their business, and they signed something saying that they support the EDC's marketing effort as important to the vitality of their business. That answers the question right there, and you've got already answered. You didn't ask that on this survey, but I think that's more relevant than trying to figure out what percentage. I think that's almost impossible. I could never answer how much. Yeah, 2022 was a great year. How much of that is attributable to the EDC's marketing? I don't know. Do I think it helped? Yes. That's all I could say.
There's no way for them to measure because there was no measurement component or participation by the businesses to be able to make a measurement. So I totally agree with Jeff there. The question is impossible for the businesses to answer.
I agree.
All right, well, let me ask you a question. Let's say let's say we were doing a community survey and we said, I don't disagree with you, Jeff, that the question is impossible as a practical matter for people to answer. On the other hand, unlike all of the other questions on this survey, there's I think an almost irresistible benefit to answering that question in one way, which is yes, it has an impact. If I said to Larry, we're thinking about using all of our money to just give handouts to people who live on Route, what road do you live on? Pomfret Road.
Yes.
Do you think this is a good idea? Yes. I guess I wouldn't. I agree with you that the second question is not really answerable, but I don't agree that the first question is meaning. The answer to the first question is meaningful. It's useful. I don't want to say it, but I guess I don't know how much weight to put on it, because if someone said to me, look, you're in business, would you like someone else's money to pay to support your business or not? I would say, well, is it okay? I would say, yeah, I guess I would like it.
John, I think the cat's too big a net right there. The question is definitely, as a business owner, it's definitely impossible to answer.
I agree.
It is.
The question, how much did it affect you?
Well,
I
you know
agree.
what?
I agree it's impossible. I agree
It's
with that.
impossible to answer.
I agree.
So I think the more intelligent or the most probably useful question asked is, are you happy with the way the marketing is being handled or being done?
Well,
And
Can't answer that either.
Do you support it? Do you support it continuing? And that sort of stuff.
I have no problem asking that question. I agree with you that that's a question that can be answered. I'm surprised that there were any merchants who said we shouldn't continue.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I agree. I agree with. I'm jumping ahead to what do we do with the answers, but that's for another stage. I agree with you that we shouldn't answer the impact, and that was a question that I think that I had suggested, Greta. I agree with you. It's not measurable. So let's take that out and let
You could ask if we. Go ahead.
Greta first, and then Larry, and then Patrick. Sorry.
Well, I think it's just,
Beth.
Greta, just respond to this, and then you're right. Beth was next. So Greta,
yeah,
just-
I agree. I think that the breaking it down to percentages is impossible and it's silly. I think that when we workshopped this survey, it was kind of like these three questions at the bottom here kind of went in order just to kind of think, okay, if this, then should any of this budget be covered by the local merchants? And it was kind of, thinking about the first two questions before answering the third is kind of, I think, the idea.
But okay, so Beth.
Okay, I want to go back to the question about, are you using the website? because my concern is that David Brown's website might confuse the business, because there are people that are paying to be on his website that are also on our joint website. And I hope, I'm not sure not all people can differentiate.
Well, so Greta, let's make clear what, what that is, and maybe we even have a picture of the website on it or something.
Yeah, because he uses Visit Woodstock, and I heard that in the discussion, and
Okay.
we don't want that.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe just toss the URL in there too.
yeah, right. Larry?
The genesis, as I recall, of this whole survey was in response to some concerns about our marketing budget
Good,
and whether we needed all that marketing.
good point,
And
excellent point.
so it feels to me that we have to be
Careful.
careful with that. Maybe a question, I'm wearing a mask, so you can see that I'm not tongue in cheek, is to say, if to the business owners, if the EDC cut its marketing budget in half, would that negatively impact your business? And if your answer is yes, ask why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They
This,
can't
Patrick,
ask those questions. They don't know what the program is about. The program is, I started this thing way back when. The idea was to build a platform that would allow Woodstock to first and foremost market Woodstock and collect names so we could market to these people in a very specific way, with the idea of next phases being add a business component to it where the businesses can participate in the marketing. We haven't gotten to that point. And yes, it takes $100,000 a year to be able to build a program that ultimately is going to give access to everybody, businesses, events, and still collect information. We're in basically year 2 of a program to build out that I said at the beginning was going to take 3 to 5 years to do. Everyone got all panicked and everything about how much money is being spent. And, that's what you do for a marketing plan. So all the questions that you're trying to ask, nobody can answer because they don't know what the program does.
Right.
So you're going to ask these questions. Are we spending too much money on marketing? How can they answer that question? They don't know what the results are. They don't know what the.
It's what you're saying, I think, is largely true, Patrick. We only have 2 choices. We either survey merchants or we don't. So
I think you survey merchants, and I think the question is, do you feel that Woodstock should market? I got to think about the question a little bit. But if you guys are worried about the number, and that's really where the question is. That's really the problem. You guys are worried about the number because you think it's too high. That's the bottom line. The EDC people think it's too high.
No.
The community who think it's too high. But
that's not true, Patrick. It's about the year-to-year spend and what might be baked into.
I don't have a point of view about whether it's high or not. I'm trying to understand.
You're talking about.
Yeah.
I think I would argue that asking the following. Sorry, go ahead, Mary.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think the nature of a survey is to get people's opinions, right? It's not, we aren't actually finding facts. We're getting opinions. So I think we're trying to get facts maybe from something that's for
But
opinions.
you're getting opinions from people not knowing the information. Opinions on things that people don't know anything about.
But there's value to knowing their opinions, even if they're based on, a different context.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with you, Marianne.
We have to deal with their opinions. Sorry, Lauren. Yeah, go ahead.
I think most people won't answer most of these questions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lon, would you repeat that?
I won't answer because I don't know. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that what percentage of
Right.
marketing budget should be paid.
But you
by
could do a
merchants.
1 to 5.
Because I also think that merchants think that the money coming to the EDC is being paid by the merchants
Right.
through the rent that they're paying. So they're already paying for it.
Right. Which is, by the way, just so you know, I want to make sure that the merchants know that that's completely incorrect.
That's
But that's what
totally
they-
incorrect.
Okay.
To everyone's point, just quickly, we should keep in mind this isn't a town meeting day vote on the record, and we have, direction by law on where we need to go. It's an informative survey to help us understand what their perception is of what we're doing, what their perceived reality is versus the reality that we think we're actually creating. And that's where your data goes in, Patrick. Like, we know numbers soup to nuts, like what we're actually getting, the clicks, the engagement, and all the great data that you're building for us in the platform, which I'm in favor of, and I voted for numerous times, these increases, and continued support. But I think that if people don't understand what we're doing, even if it's good for them, then it's not going to be helpful for the community at the end of the day.
So let me suggest the following, because I want to, because again, we clearly, I think, need to allow some more time, particularly on this survey, to get this kind of feedback, and Greta, for you to consolidate the ideas and think about wordsmithing and so forth. Let me just suggest that I think the general direction is, which I think everyone can agree on, is there are a set of questions here that let's not answer questions that no one or almost no one can answer, right? And that doesn't violate your point that it's worthwhile to get. Let's ask questions where we're interested in their opinion. Some of those questions include your activity on the website, whether you think if how much you know about what the EDC is doing, whether you think the EDC's marketing is helping or not, and maybe some further about how much you know, or basically how much you know about it. Just getting into a little, like, do you really know or not, whatever. And just a general question about, do you think that the question that Jeff, that you asked people to sign their name up, do you support continued use of, do you support the EDC's marketing program? What would you do? What would you do differently about the EDC's marketing program? I think would be a good question to add into that. Those are all opinions that we'll get. We can decide what to do with those answers. I think they will inform us in some way, not perhaps factually, but in other ways. And we avoid questions that people can't answer.
Right, John, that should include that last question about what percentage of the budget. That's not the last question. I mean, what percentage of the budget for marketing should be covered by the local merchants? I don't think you can ask that question either. For one thing, people don't even know what the budget is to answer the question what percentage means.
The way to answer that the way I would change that question, because I think it's a good question, is I would say, would you be willing to participate in the program, and at what percentage level? Because one of the things we can do is we can make this somewhat self-funding itself by having the merchants kick in a little bit of money. They'll pay much more attention to what the marketing program is, and they'll be able to actually be part of the marketing program.
Yeah. Or
but not if you say, you can ask that question. That's
right.
A good question, but not if you say, ask them what percentage.
Right, I agree.
Ask them if they would.
Are you likely, not likely, more likely? Yes, something to sort of gauge interest.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Would you be willing?
Yes.
Would you be willing to contribute to an increase in the marketing budget or something
Yes.
like that?
Yes, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great.
Because that sort of says, if they, that in order to say yes to that, they're obviously saying they believe that the marketing is helpful, right? I mean, it's sort of, and by the way, and I think asking that question in terms of defending our spending to the community, one member of the community has already asked a question, which if we cannot answer, I believe we will have a real difficulty spending on marketing, which is that if this marketing is so effective, why won't the merchants pay for any of it? And there is no good answer to that question. And so if
there's no answer because we haven't talked to them about it.
Whatever the reason, I'm not saying we can't, whatever the reason, I'm not going to answer that. I have only one response today, which is if the answer comes back 0, I have no response to that question. So
I agree.
And so I think that asking the question the way we did, not with the percentages and so forth, which is unanswerable, but would you be willing to contribute to a fund to expand EDC's marketing program or something?
No,
of that
maybe very likely something like that.
So Joe, last comment, and then we'll move.
Yeah, I could probably anticipate some of the answers of what they'll be. I would bet heavily that most of the food and beverage merchants in town would say, no, we're already paying.
I understand they would.
How are you paying? You're not paying. How are you paying? This is great. Because the 1% tax
Patrick,
is money that's.
calm down, calm down, Patrick, calm
That's
down.
what they will say. I think
Sorry,
more than-
guys, this is.
Calm down, calm
guys-
down, calm down. We have to take 1% out, but everything we sell, I send it.
You collect 1%. You don't take it out.
And nobody
You
else
collect
does,
1%
and nobody else does.
I do.
Well, I mean, Jeff doesn't.
Right. No, guys, this is not what we're debating.
It's money in
Jeff,
your pocket. It's money.
Patrick, hold on one second.
Calm down.
What Jeff is
Patrick.
saying is what people will answer. Lauren has made the point.
I'm telling
that
you
people-
what this means. So they're gonna say, listen, we already collect 1% and we give it to the state, which is, we're already doing that. Why should we contribute more?
All I'm arguing for is that we include the question, would you be willing to contribute?
Yeah.
We
I
will
mean,
then get,
that's the way we should do it. We can
I
move on
think
from
you're
this.
right.
It's-
I
okay.
It's very
Answer the
straightforward.
so, and
That's
then
the question.
when we get,
Tell me what to anticipate.
I happen to agree with you as to what the answer will be.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating that when we get to the community
Yeah,
with that survey information,
yeah.
it is going to be much more difficult for us to defend a marketing budget without that component, but that's a prediction of what's gonna happen. It will either happen or not. So Lauren, okay, you get the last word.
I would suggest putting a line in that states how the funding happens now, so that people know that and don't, if it can be done in one sentence.
Yeah.
It's,
I know it's complex, but
It's not a bad thought. The one of the struggles we have to understand is that the 1% doesn't just cover marketing. It covers all of the stuff we do.
yeah.
And that's what makes it complicated.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Just a quick thought on this. People like in Queechee, my parents, like back in the day, they bonded together to like buy massive amounts of fuel oil to get a discount. And like schools in Connecticut, districts that aren't even related get together to get better deals on books. So maybe there's a way to frame it in terms of like, what this is, and if the merchants are interested in, getting more bang for their buck, if they're interested at all in any marketing whatsoever, would they like to be part of a marketing cartel, so to speak, of a bigger buy? Like maybe it's just about the presentation of it that we have to put more thought into,
We have a lot of, there's a lot of dimensions. Deborah, is it?
Yeah, I do. It has to, this may help. I feel like maybe, and this is the point is that this is about perception, because I think most people don't understand what is happening. And I think maybe to frame it that way at the beginning is we want to have an understanding of what you want and what your understanding is of what we're doing. And it's the first question is, what is your awareness of what EDC is doing in marketing? Have that be number one so that we understand how people are answering all these questions.
Well, let's ask the merchants. We can ask the merchants.
Yeah.
Who do you think pays for, who do you think pays the 1% option tax? You pay, your customers pay. I don't know.
But
Yeah.
also, having, because that's what we're trying to understand also is the perception. It's everything here is about the perception.
So Greta, one of the challenges here, Greta, is working with, Beth is still on, I think. Jeff, are you still on?
Yeah, I am, and I'd like to add something to this,
All
just
right.
for everyone's knowledge. As you know, the merchants gathered and they signed what I described to you in support of the EDC marketing. But in addition, we have developed a survey that has gone out to the merchants, and most of which have been coming back now. And one of the questions on it would be, would you contribute to marketing Woodstock in the fourth quarter? And then it lists following ways, different ways, social media, public radio, certain print things. We are interested in finding out who would do that in a way that the EDC is not attempting to market whatsoever, which is really for the Upper Valley and just for holiday time, and to see if they would contribute towards that. And so it'd be interesting to see. Those answers are already, Beth has a lot of them already. I haven't seen a tally yet, but we are looking at merchant support for marketing in a different way than the EDC is marketing.
Very interesting. The reason I asked if you're still on is, Greta, are you comfortable? I think that because merchants are and have been very involved in the EDC's discussions about this, and they are one of the three constituencies, and we have them right here. And you've been working and incorporated into that little working group. Do you feel comfortable over the next week taking this general input and meeting again? And Beth and Jeff, would you be willing to be representatives? And the three of you have one more meeting over the next week and try to come back
Absolutely, with Lauren Fisher as well.
Okay, great. So Lauren, sorry, I didn't mean to exclude you. So if the four of you would have a meeting within a week and come back with version 2, and I'll give you the platform, we'll figure out how the EDC is going to meet again and so forth. And I think most of our discussion will then be on this survey, because I think the other two surveys were generally aligned on what needs to be done. So we'll schedule another meeting in about 10 days or 2 weeks. We'll give us another, we're not in a rush, we have time. So is everyone comfortable with that as a follow-up? And then the other surveys, we'll edit them, get them back out to people, and then at that same meeting, we'll do any, and if people can give feedback to Marion and I and Greta via email. And then when we get to the meeting, say 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks from now, we'll finalize the 3 surveys, and then we'll be immediately ready to get them out. Does that sound like a plan?
Yes.
I think we're,
Yes.
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 I will say that, by the way, even though we're kind of debating a lot about this, I think there's actually a pretty clear consensus on how to do this survey. We just have to construct it according to the principles we've all just discussed. So I don't think we have any fundamental disagreements. We may have disagreements at the end with the results, but not about what the survey should be. Okay, thank you all very much for that. Good progress, and I think the surveys, all 3 of them, have been strengthened as a result of these conversations, and we'll have one more round of revisions. Okay, the remaining items, the grant follow-up process. Deb, do you want to comment at all on this? I mean, I don't think we need to explain the automation and so forth. We've agreed on the questions. What if anything, would you? I thought we had not agreed on the questions, which is why I put it on the agenda. So my mistake.
Oh, I thought we had agreed on the
Yes,
questions.
you're right. I made a mistake. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's just an update, like it's about to go out and we'll start having information. And that we are going back to the year before as well, because there are a number of grants that, we might want to get some information on as well, some of the larger grants.
Yeah, and so this process is now, it's almost it's almost ready to be automated. It's built into Grant Manager. So people, where they get their funding, will also sign up for follow-up meetings, and the information will appear on the website. The flow will all be automated.
This may be the place where I put in the point about our logo. Or do we need to wait till D?
Till D, just hold on.
Okay. Yep, no worries.
Any other comments about the grant follow-up process? Remember, this is where some people come every 3 months, some every 6 months, and so forth. And then in some cases, like the grant writer, we're going to do it post.
So is the grant writer going to come on board again? Is that where we're at right now?
No. We're not going to discuss that today.
Okay.
We're just talking about, first thing, we're going to do a review of prior grants.
Okay.
We're going to ask.
Right, I'm sorry.
That's
You're
okay.
right.
Can we ask what they've done to publicize the largesse of the EDC?
I think that's one of the questions, is it, Deborah? Or we have the ability, they're going to come and appear. Is that one of the questions?
That is one of the questions, and I'll update that on D.
Okay.
That-
But we also have the ability to ask them anything we want. There's a set of questions that they pre-fill out. We get those, and then they come to the meeting. We have the benefit of their written update brief, and we can ask them whatever we want.
But we could also ask very specific questions to a specific grant, in the form as well. So, I will make sure that they're customized as well.
Okay. The select board, so at the last meeting, we approved changes to the housing rental incentive program. Two of the changes were not controversial, allowing for 6-month rentals and incenting the number of workers rather than the number of bedrooms.
Rather than number of what?
Bedrooms.
Okay.
So in other words, if you have a 3-bedroom apartment with 1 worker in it, you used to get more money than a one-bedroom apartment with 3 workers in it. If you can do that.
Must be interesting.
Now you get more money for you get money for workers, not so much for bedrooms.
Bedroom with 6 workers.
Right. Those were approved by the select board. The third change, which was also approved by the select board, was to allow incentives for for landlords whose properties were in adjoining towns but not in Woodstock, as long as they were renting to a Woodstock worker. Very analogous, the same concerns were raised by the select board as when we proposed to give a grant to a childcare facility
That's it.
outside of Woodstock. And the EDC, the select board at that time voted to approve that. We checked to make sure that it was legal. It is. And they voted to approve that with one select board member voting against that. That same issue came up. And this time, I think it got more complicated because, well, it doesn't, I'm having trouble remembering exactly what caused it, but there was we gave them some misinformation. We made a mistake. Jill made a mistake in explaining to them how the program worked, and we then corrected the mistake. And that correction exacerbated the concern of some select board members.
It had something to do with housing already being provided and whether they would get that.
Right, correct. Yeah,
existing landlords
Right.
renting to it. Yeah.
And so the issue, at the select board meeting, I mean, these are sort of interesting conceptual or philosophical questions. At the select board meeting, at which they approved all of the recommended updates to the program, we told them that landlords who are currently renting to workers and have been, let's say, for a long time, or just are currently, are eligible for the incentive. That was not correct. And it's only people who are adding to the capacity. That, when we corrected that, it caused a greater concern about giving money to landlords that were not based in Woodstock. Why isn't important. It did. You know, people just felt that if in fact we're not going to give it to Woodstock existing landlords, but we would give it to a new Bridgewater landlord, maybe that was too much to explain. Whatever the reason, it caused them to raise a concern. Well, and so 2 things happened at the meeting. By the way, it was a really good discussion, and I think, you know, respect for the EDC's decision-making process and a desire to hear what we wanted to do, but also a desire to address their concerns. What we ended up with, which I think Jill proposed, or maybe I think Jill proposed it, and everyone agreed to this, is we would put on hold the third change, which is we are now not going to grant, for the moment, we're not going to grant non-Woodstock homeowners any incentives, which means that the one person in the pipeline not from Woodstock will not get the grant now. It's possible that they would reapprove that concept later, but they're not going to do it now. And secondly, that the EDC will think through whether or not creating a new incentive for existing landlords what are the pros and cons of doing this. And at the meeting, we explained what we were concerned about doing this, which I think is about giving incentives to existing landlords, which was basically what we said was, if we do that, that will be fairer, but we will not expand workforce housing capacity. We will get no more housing we were trying to solve a problem. That won't solve a problem. It will just give money to landlords who are giving housing, which is fair. But so my personal opinion is John,
I like my analogy with it. It's when Elon cuts the Tesla price by 10 grand. It's as if he suddenly had to write a check to everyone who ever bought a Tesla for $10,000. It's just not how the world works.
However, if I was a select board member, I know, I mean, I have no, it's very difficult to answer the person who wrote me an email the next day and said, I understand that before we corrected the misinformation, who wrote the email and said, I understand that there's an incentive, so if I have 4 units, I'm renting them all to 4 Woodstock employees, how do I get my, incentive? And I wrote back and I said, I think that's a mistake, we're investigating it. And, he said, well, what do you mean? You mean someone new gets it and I don't? And I said, well, yes, so I understand the pressure that the select board, anyway, the resolution was to put on hold and therefore not approve yet, maybe never, the proposal for outside the community, and to investigate the pros and cons, to come back with information about that. What are the pros? What are the cons? What would the costs be? How many are there, et cetera? And so the housing working group is now working on that information and we'll come back. And it's a very reasonable way to, in the short term, to resolve the issue. And, then we'll have a debate about it over the next 3 or 4 months.
I wasn't at the meeting, so, but I have to ask this question. I'm wondering if anybody has the same question, is what was the logic behind allowing us to help pay for a childcare facility in Bridgewater?
Yeah.
And
not do this.
And not do this.
Well, one of the select board members said, well, I didn't vote for that either.
Okay, one did, but what about the other? I mean, it took my understanding,
Yeah.
three select boards
Yeah.
changed their mind.
It was a complicated meeting, and I think that what happened was that through the civil discussions that we realized that we can get 2 wins and punt a third for more investigation, and I think that's sort of where everyone felt most comfortable going. I don't think it was fully debated at the end of the day because we decided that we could go back and examine this.
No, we didn't fully debate that point. That point wasn't fully
Right.
elucidated.
Jill brought that point up, Joe, and one of the select board members mentioned what John just said. Well, I didn't vote for that either. So
But there's 5 people on the board.
Yeah. I think that
it wasn't debated at the time.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the update.
Okay.
Deborah has raised an additional issue. Deborah, do you want the issue about attribution?
Sure. If you look on the page that we're looking at the agenda right now, and you see on the bottom, you see Woodstock EDC. It's something that we worked on with Patrick. Patrick worked on, and we talked with Jill was a part of that too, and myself and John. There's also a version, I believe, where the W is on top, so it could be in a square version as well, where it clearly says the Woodstock EDC. When I was at the Rotary meeting on Wednesday, there was a really wonderful presentation about Bookstock, and there was one slide about the sponsorships, and they had the top sponsors and 3 logos across it, and then underneath they had smaller sponsors all written out. The logo that they had for the EDC just was the Woodstock logo, which is literally just the Woodstock with the W and the star above it. And so Anne, the woman who was presenting, said, oh, that we got a grant from the Woodstock EDC. However, on their material, it's just the Woodstock logo. So I'm guessing that all of our sponsorships, and again, now that we have this grant follow-up and we can make sure that this is part of the process to make sure that they have the right logo for the EDC on it. And I don't know if it's too late for Bookstock, if they've already done their printing or whatever, but there's no mention of Woodstock EDC besides that logo, and that logo only says Woodstock. So I just want to make sure that if people are involved, that they get to, the grantees.
This is a great, Patrick, you're muted. Go ahead, Patrick, and then I'll comment.
2 things we can do. One is we can create a page on the website that has the correct logos to use. That'd be very easy, John. I can send those to you and you can put them up for people to download. The second thing is we can get to the Bookstock people and at least give them the right logo to use on any material that's digital that they're not printing.
Amen. That was my next thought. Yeah.
So
if it has to be printed.
Patrick, if we have very little leverage over you, but since you have pride in the logo, could you, I will, if you send it to me, I will post it on the website. Could you get in touch with the Woodstock, Bookstock folks and do what you just
Yeah,
suggested.
I've been talking with Peter because we're donating rooms.
Okay, great.
Actually donating. We're cutting our prices for rooms for them. So I can talk to Peter, no problem.
All right, thank you. I will say that in the positive, this is a great catch, Deborah, and I think as we get more capable at following up and enforcing this recognition point, this is a good thing to add to it. I bet there will be more. But I will just say in Bookstock's defense that they did submit a marketing plan that I reviewed. I mean, I didn't want to like involve a lot of people. It's just much better than it's ever been. And as one example of that, what they offered us was Joe, the EDC, in this case, Joe, is going to be the person who introduces the keynote event on the first night of Bookstock with, what's the guy from the New Yorker? And
Horowitz,
Andy
yeah.
Borowitz, and interviewed by, Wortley, but what's the guy in NPR? Mitch Wortley.
Yeah.
And introducing Mitch and Andy.
By the way, I
It's gonna
have
be Joe.
no idea who either one of
I
these
know.
people.
Oh my God.
It's like they're gonna be old friends. But anyway, they offered us
That's awesome.
the opportunity to basically be introduce the keynote event as the major sponsor. So I think this is just, hopefully, when you talk to them, it's just a misunderstanding. They didn't
Yeah.
have it in time or whatever. So
Yeah, no, I don't think it's
Yep.
they meant to do the right thing. They just didn't have the right material,
Right.
So, and it's much better than last year. So, it's in the right direction.
The reality is we haven't really had a until very, very recently. So
Yeah.
say yes, I'd like to see you in it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, you don't.
All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to encourage us to only have one working group update, which is because we've talked a little bit about housing. We've talked a lot about things that affect marketing. Unless Todd, you have anything urgent, just briefly.
Super quick,
Right.
super quick.
You do
Two
yours
things,
first.
and I don't want to be inappropriate. I don't know the right way to do it. So the thing I'm saying is, Chakra Working Group, I'm going to be reaching out to everybody to see if they can come next month to give us an update on where they're at individually as a group with a representative from each group. But with that said, the calendar, what I would like to, I'm sure I'm doing it the wrong form and wrong way, so you can just do it however the proper way is. But with July 4th being the week and the 6th being the first day, is there any way we can push the meeting into the next week? Because a lot of people will be on vacation that week. And so I feel like it'll be really hard for me to rally the troops, so to speak. But I'd be happy to try. And I won't personally be on vacation, but if there's a way we can talk about maybe massaging that date, that would be wonderful.
Does anyone object to if we try to move it to the 13th, and I can check it with everyone's availability? I agree with that idea.
I object. I'm just teasing.
Oh, all right.
I'm not going to be. So.
Well, actually, I don't know that we need to do further work. Is there any, if no one objects, we will decide now to move it to the 13th. That also, I think, helps if we have an interim meeting, even if it's just a half an hour, to talk about the surveys. We space it out a little bit better.
That's good.
All right.
That's
So
awesome.
no, July 3rd, from July 6th is a Thursday. Is that right? Yeah, because Tuesday is the 4th.
July 5th.
Yeah, the 13th, July 13th would be the proposed new meeting date.
I want to know.
All right, so July 13th, and so Todd, why don't you invite the folks for the 13th then?
Great, roger that.
Okay, and we have a quick update from, sorry.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we have an update from the Downtown Revitalization Group.
Let's do it next time.
You know what, we might, if we do it, the problem is I have a personal conflict that I'm trying to get to.
Tonight?
And I don't want to shortcut this discussion. Let me just talk for 2 minutes about this to get your head ready, and then let's, at the next meeting, when we talk about the survey, let's also talk about this, and then we'll make a decision.
Well, let me do this.
Yeah, fine, go ahead, yeah.
This all stems from the annual debate that goes on about things that need to be done at downtown to make downtown look better and feel better for residents or visitors who come in. And so rather than have this constant annual debate about who's going to pay for what and what's going to be done and everything else, John and I and Beth have identified some of the things that are required almost on an annual basis. And we identified a few extra ones. And the idea is the town or the village should actually pay for this because more or less their responsibility. And we had a meeting Tuesday morning at the cafe, and Eric Duffy, the town manager, was there. John, Stuart Matthews, Beth, and what we talked about very quickly, we thought about, okay, let's find out what these things cost, get these things done. The EDC will supplement the village or the town, whoever's paying for this, for the next 2 or 3 years until they can get it implemented and put it into their permanent annual budget.
And give an example of what some of the things are.
Oh, for goodness sakes, we're talking about watering the plants every year, maintaining the benches and the picnic tables. In other words, sanding them down, urethane them annually, disinfecting, cleaning the trash can. The top of the trash cans get just mess. They're terrible. They're awful, disgusting. So get them cleaned up once or twice a week. Just somebody go down there with a spray and a rag and make them on the outside and the inside. Those are Teagle's Landing. That's always an issue. And I don't understand why. It belongs to the village, it belongs to the town, just like Tribal Park, just like the green. That shouldn't be an issue, but it seems to be every year. So this year, we hired somebody, well, Cyber Water go down there with his crew, clean it up, make it look good in time for Memorial Day. But we want it to be identified as something that is crucial and what needs to be done every year along with these other things. So we're putting together a budget. Hopefully, we'll get it approved by the commission. And I spoke with Eric after the meeting. He said it's not a lot of money. We should be able to implement it or integrate it into our budget, annual budget, once we get things straightened out. And so I think we're talking about anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 initially. And that would include buying some umbrellas that have been, broken and mishandled and destroyed, adding possibly a trash can that we need that we didn't buy last time, putting in a strategic place. And we also talked about storage, but that's a different subject. Essentially, putting together a budget so this stuff can be annual, either hiring a person or supplementing the village budget so somebody from the DPW can do it every year.
Right, with the objective, the key is that giving the village time a second chance. Because they said they would do this the first time and they didn't. Remember, if you all remember, someone said, who's going to pay for the maintenance of Teagle's Landing? We said the village is going to pay for it. The village said we don't have it in our budget. It's the middle of the budget year.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, we'll pay for it for 1 year.
And then you guys take it over from there.
And then they didn't.
They didn't do it.
So in a sort of what I would describe as a spirit of generosity, but also determination, rather than do this penny by penny, we're going to say, look, we're going to give you 2 or 3 years, and that's for us to discuss. And Joe will put forward a proposal.
I will.
But we've got the town manager on board now. This is the town's responsibility. His people have to do it.
Right.
And we'll pay for the cost of that for a couple of years.
Until they get it
into their budget, and then they take it over and we don't have to deal with this. The reason why we wanted to bring this up tonight is not to debate it. We'll have another chance to debate it and a final proposal to come forward that Eric is going to put forward.
Right.
It's going to be his proposal.
Yeah.
But
Great idea.
we just wanted you guys to get it in your mind so it doesn't come up in one meeting that it's a surprise. We're thinking about this.
Right.
If you agree or disagree, tell Joe over the next month.
Yeah.
As you put this together.
And see how far you get with that.
Yeah, right.
And
I agree, but where's my placard on my bench, Joe?
The thing you should understand is what we've done so far is we've already cleaned up Teagle's Landing. It looks great. Roger, who does the annual watering the plants, he's on board now. He's going to start doing the cleanup of the park benches. He's already cleaned up all the trash cans, and they look great now. So it's already in the process. We just got to get it fine down to a number, and Eric will make the proposal, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Beth.
Great. Awesome.
I just wanted to say one, thanks to Roger who did, he thought this was wonderful. He is willing to like palm sand and heavily urethane, these picnic tables, because they get a lot of use and they get filthy. And so the urethane will really protect them. And they were made by Charlie Shackleton. They're, you know, they're not your
Should be taken care
Home
of.
Depot picnic tables. But the other thing I wanted to say was what I just lost my train of thought.
Say goodnight.
I'm so sorry.
Say goodnight, Beth.
Stop it.
I feel like Beth made a motion to adjourn, but she realized she couldn't.
Right. I just want to finish. What I'm sensitive to is that there's work that gets done outside of the meetings in the working groups. And then we bring it up and you guys have no time to kind of think about it. That's what.
Talking about all this other stuff in the meeting.
Yeah, no, but I
think childcare and everything else.
Right.
Which is so important.
And so downtown revitalization is also important. So we'll have one or two more discussions about this leading to, I think, one meeting from now or 2 meetings from now. Eric Duffy stands up as the town manager, makes a proposal to the EDC.
Of the work that's already been done.
Can we put like 15 minutes on the agenda for the next special meeting? I mean, we're gonna be there for
Yes,
25 minutes anyway.
that's what I'm suggesting, is that we start to give feedback on this issue to Joe at that special meeting.
Great, great.
I did have my train of thought came back.
All right.
When I was going by the Welcome Center tonight after setting up for the pasta supper, Kate Miller was out there in her painting attire, spray painting the plastic barrel that is one of the trash cans that we're still using, that was partially blue and green. And so the trash cans are really something that are expensive, but need to be.
Beth, you're bringing us back to trash cans, Beth. You're scaring me.
I know. Hey, you're talking to me. We can be talking about porta potties next.
Hey, guys. All right, I think we've reached the end of our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Joe has moved it. Is there
Wait, John, can you do 1 second? I just want to thank everybody. I know I'm gonna, my last meeting, because I will be moving to Mendon. And anybody wants to know details, call me. I can tell you what's going on. But we basically sold the motel and we should be closing somewhere around June 15th. We'll be moving to a condo in Mendon temporarily. So this is my last meeting. You guys are awesome. This is one of the best groups I've ever been part of. Thank you. It's been an honor to be on the EDC board.
Thank you, Patrick. Wish you all the best luck, man.
Patrick, my apologies for overlooking that you were here and I just actually forgot that you were leaving. And so I didn't do the normal thank you and so forth. And actually our policy has been our practice, I should say, has been to offer our thanks to people when they're not at the meeting because they never show up for that last meeting when they're supposed to. And you are showing up. So yeah, I'm sure I speak for everybody. You have made an incredible contribution, and the way that you have with Beth transformed the marketing working group is a contribution that is going to last. Whatever happens, whatever the outcome of these things are, we're going to keep doing marketing in some form, and we're going to benefit hugely from what you and the team have put together. So thank you for that, and hopefully
you're awesome, Patrick.
I'm gonna marketing group a little bit too. I'm not gonna just disappear, although it's crazy right now. But and I'm gonna see if I can find somebody to head that up with Beth. Jennifer from the inn isn't capable of doing it there. Her time is just too tight.
Yeah. She told me that she'd be willing to do it in the future, but I think for a year or two, it's probably not. She just doesn't have the time.
At the inn right now for her to do it.
Yeah. So, all right. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
Patrick, second. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, everybody, so much. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Nikki.
Who's Roger that you're talking?